Blog Talk Radio.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi, Xander.
I hear you.
Oh, you can both hear me. Great. I don't know what's been going on with the technical stuff. Did you hear my introduction of you, Fallon, or did you not get that?
I heard nothing.
Yeah, me neither.
All right. Well, let me introduce you again. My guests today are Fallon Stone, who is a lesbian blogger with Velvet Park Media, and Hello. Hi, Brian. Yeah, I'm just doing some introductions, and then we'll get right to it. So one of the things Fallon asked me was why I felt she was right for this panel. Well, one of the things I have to say, she's not afraid to tell you what she thinks, and even though we don't always agree on everything, she, like most people, is able to put across her argument eloquently without losing ground. Welcome, Fallon.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I would be even better if this darn blog talk would sort itself out with the technicalities. It told me I was broadcasting live, and then apparently there was a dead air the past few minutes. So my introductions went kind of like out of the window.
Okay, just to let you know, you sound incredibly garbled. A lot of people in your chat room are kind of mentioning that they can barely hear you. I, on the other hand, am loud and clear.
I hear you clearly too. I don't know what the issue is. I just changed microphones, but let's just carry on and see how we get on. Another is Brian Bowen, who, like many LGBT people, maybe I should have asked you to that so I don't get too many complaints this week. Who were raised in fundamental churches, struggled with what preachers said about homosexuality, and decided to read the Bible for himself, and found that the preachers were not telling us the whole story. He is the author of The Bedkeeper, A Biblical Case for Gay Marriage, and in his book he shares what Jesus taught his disciples, people are born gay, and what Apostle Paul ordained same-sex marriage. More about his book later, but welcome to you, Brian. Can you hear me?
I do hear you. You're still kind of garbled, but I'm making it out. How are you?
I'm very good apart from the technical. Let me just unplug this microphone and see if we have any better luck without it.
Okay.
Okay, how are we doing now? Can you hear me any better?
Oh, yeah, that's a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Thank you for bearing with me, guys. I'm really sorry about these technical issues. Everyone seems to be having a lot of hassle with blog talk and their technicalities. So what I'd like to do to begin with, because it would be a great point to start, I want to play a soundbite for you. And it's Barack Obama, our president, and it's him talking about gay marriage. So let me just play that, and then we can start to talk from there. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
I have to tell you, as I said, I've been going through an evolution on this issue. I've always been adamant that gay and lesbian Americans should be treated fairly and equally. And that's why, in addition to everything we've done in this administration, rolling back Don't Ask, Don't Tell, so that outstanding Americans can serve our country, whether it's no longer defending the Defense Against Marriage Act, which tried to federalize what has historically been state law. I've stood on the side of broader equality for the LGBT community. And I had hesitated on gay marriage, in part because I thought civil unions would be sufficient, that was something that would give people hospital visitation rights and other elements that we take for granted. And I was sensitive to the fact that for a lot of people, the word marriage was something that evokes very powerful traditions, religious beliefs, and so forth. But I have to tell you that over the course of several years, as I talk to friends and family and neighbors, when I think about members of my own staff who are in incredibly committed, monogamous relationships, same-sex relationships, who are raising kids together. When I think about those soldiers or airmen or Marines or sailors who are out there fighting on my behalf and yet feel constrained, even now that Don't Ask, Don't Tell is gone, because they're not able to commit themselves in a marriage. At a certain point, I've just concluded that for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
Well, there we are. We have it straight from the president's mouth. He feels... Hello? Hello? Have I lost you?
Hey, Xander.
I'm here.
Cool. I'm sorry. I was just checking. I'm not very trusting of this software anymore. So there we heard it straight from the president's mouth that gay marriage is on his agenda. Now, there have been a lot of people that have said that they feel that this was just to get the gay vote. How do we feel about that?
Can you repeat that one more time? I couldn't quite hear you.
Well, there's been a lot of suggestions that the president actually gave the statement about same-sex marriage in order to be able to ensure the gay vote. What do we feel about that?
Well, I don't know if he did it to ensure the gay vote. I mean, I think by getting rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, he was very clear with legislation about his opinion on gay rights. So I don't think that was a gimmick or anything. I think it was kind of clearly delineated what his plan over the next 4 years is. And as any presidential candidate should do, that's what he did. He just said, this is what my goal is. These are what my goals are, not just in gay marriage, but in every major political arena.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you agree with that, Brian?
Oh, yeah. There was never a question in my mind, but that it was anything more than a genuine affirmation of what he felt long, long time ago, but just was politically unable to say so because, it was new. You didn't really know how it was going to work. And, my biggest fear was the right wing was going to latch onto it and turn the rest of the election into that issue just to, whip up their evangelical voters and do their best to line their wallets with more money. And, the sad part about it is that when that happens, every child that hears that who's gay, even if they never go and hear it in a church, they still hear it on TV like that. So I was really thrilled that not only that I thought it was genuine, but the timing was so early on that they were just unable to latch onto it as an issue. And it just, they tried, and, Rick Santorum came out with his thing. But for the most part, I thought it was the best election as far as all of that went. So, yeah, I was thrilled. I cried. Oh, my God, I boo-hooed like a baby. It was thrilling. Really thrilling.
I think you and the rest of the gay community, because I actually feared a Republican administration led by Mitt Romney because I felt as a gay person he really didn't represent my feelings or my rights or anything that I was striving towards. And I would have found it very difficult to live in America that didn't do that. I mean, we've come a long way, but there's such a long way to go. I think the work has really just started. But how do you feel about the fact that it's left to the states? I mean, should this not be... I mean, I don't think it's that we should be voting on the rights of individuals. But I do think that this should be a federal issue rather than an issue that's left to local government heads. Fallon.
Again, you were kind of garbled on that, so I apologize for making you repeat your question, but could you?
I'm sorry. I'm having lots of trouble with this blog talk thing. What I'm actually going to do is I'll repeat the question, and then I'm going to try and call in and actually do it a different way to see if we get a better response. Okay. What I was talking about was whether it should be a federal issue or it should be left to the states could you decide?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say I think it should be a federal issue. I think it gets a little weird whenever states do something that goes against whatever the federal law is. We see this, this craziness with the legalization of recreational use of pot on the state level, but it's not on the federal level, and who the fuck knows what to do with that, right? Nobody. So the states really shouldn't have that much control, especially when it comes to major human civil rights issues. We should not be allowed, states should not be allowed to say, oh, in Texas, black people should be slaves. That's their state law. It just doesn't work.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I really thought when Dick Cheney was pretty much the first one to say, oh, this should go to the states, I knew then, it's like, yep, they're going to use it in every single state and local election, and that's how they're going to govern the states, and that's how they're going to really get the most political mileage out of the gay issue. But, there needs to be some federal normalcy as far as that goes. And this would not be the first time it's happened. They banned polygamy in 1862. And so, if it had been left just to the states, Utah, it would still be legal to be in polygamous marriages. But on the other hand, I do think states should still be able to maintain things like how old you should be before you no longer have to have your parents sign off for you. In some states, heterosexual marriage, you can get married as young as 14 if you've got parental consent. So, that varies widely from state to state. And of course in some states what's left to do after 4th grade. So, there probably are a lot of girls getting married at 14. But we also would have to address that with same-sex marriage. How old does your son have to be before he can marry another boy? I don't know how that would work, but I think it should be federally recognized so that, you can go from state to state and still be married. But I do still I think the state's laws on age restriction and those more fine-tuned laws, I'm perfectly fine with each state letting it decide itself.
Well, I kind of think that some states that have allowed gay marriage have really not encompassed it fully. They've just seen it as like a way to kind of appease gay people, because although they've allowed gay marriage, there you go, gay people, you can get married, but they've not given them the rights that are attached to that. Like if you married a straight person, you would get their health benefits, death benefits, immigration rights, if you married someone from a different country. But you don't get that as part of this. I would call it a halfway offer, really. Hello? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you've got this super awesome echoey thing going on right now, but yeah, I can hear you. I'm a loss now what to do. I called in to the show. Let me just see if this makes a difference. Can you still hear me? Yep. Did the echo go? No, you still got a little weird echo.
Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed that it might get better, or that maybe Blog Talk will increase their spending on their software to ensure that the people who have shows on this network work a little bit better than they have been. So I kind of think that for me the gay marriage issue was just like a Band-Aid for a severed head. It's a drop in the ocean, and although it's a step toward equality, gay people should be enjoying the same rights as everybody else. Let's face it, we don't pay any less taxes. We don't get cheaper housing for being gay. So why shouldn't we enjoy the same rights as everybody else?
Well, you know what? I agree with you 100%, but I think there are some really interesting areas of the gay rights issue for all gay rights, marriage in particular, and they kind of came out to me when Prop 8 was on the docket for the state of California, and in California, the gayest state of them all, they voted against it, you know. So I was really surprised by that. And Kathy Griffin did an episode in her show, My Life on the D-List, where she went around to people and she asked them, how are they voting, how are they planning to vote on this proposition, and then why, especially if they said, no, they weren't going to support gay marriage. And most people overwhelmingly didn't know why they should or shouldn't support it. They had no opinion either way, and they were an uninformed voter, and so they were just voting, you know, with whatever rhetoric somebody said. They just, you know, nobody's thinking about stuff. I don't know if anybody, you guys, I don't think either one of you guys are from California, but we had these crazy commercials like the gays are going to come into your schools and make your children gay, and that's why you should vote no on Prop 8, or yes on Prop 8, or whatever it was. Anyway, so to me, it really seems like the American population as a whole is not really informed on what these propositions, what these issues really mean, and that goes for gay issues and everything else. All the other issues that we vote on, we are just an uninformed voting population armed with the power to make a difference and lacking all of the knowledge to make a difference in the right direction, in a reasonable direction, because I do think the majority of the population is reasonable. The other interesting thing, you played the Barack Obama clip. After he said that, many of the African Americans who were against gay marriage suddenly switched, like, oh, the gorgeous, handsome black man who is leading our country says it's okay, so we shall agree with him because, you know, he is right. What happened there? What's going on where, you know, the right person says the right thing and everybody's minds change?
I think that there is an element with the population where we are very sheepish, and if someone we like or respect says something, it can change our thinking just like that, which I think is scary. I mean, you know, maybe they should do an experiment and get the president to say something so controversial to actually just see if people follow that. But I kind of think there are some people that would. But the concern for me is that these objections are not by, plain speaking, sensible thinking individuals. It's actually more loony left Christians with an axe to grind who seem to have nothing better to do. And I know for a fact you have an opinion on that side of it, Brian.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One thing that Fallon mentioned about Prop 8 was that we have to really look at the timing as well. You know, the one thing that caused so many evangelicals to stay home was because Mitt Romney was a Mormon. And anti-Mormon sentiment runs deep because the reason they banned polygamy was, and although there are state-compelling reasons, you know, it's hard to regulate a divorce of multiple spouses and that, the reason they regulated it to begin with was because the evangelicals, well, the Protestants back then, were afraid that the Mormons would outnumber them by their, you know, enhanced ability for procreation.
Wow.
And so I really think a lot of what happened was we saw the Mormon Church invest so much money into California's Prop 8, and a lot of that was because they knew they were going to run Mitt Romney, and they were trying to establish themselves as a one-man, one-woman religion to offset the years in stereotype of polygamy that still exists today. And the other part of that, I think, was, as you say, why all of a sudden did black people vote to support it? It was not because Barack Obama was black, but homophobia is so virulent in the black community because, you know, there's a machismo that is really expected in their men. And even though all these men were on the down low all these years, nobody would say anything about it. And even though there were a lot of gay men and black men who supported gay marriage privately, none of them were going to say so until the president did. That, to me, was what I really thought was the most effective part of President Obama. It wasn't the fact that he said it, so now black people are just going to fall in line. He said it, and so now black people had permission to fall in line. They were already there. They just weren't, and that's why I think we saw the NAACP come out as well. Lots of underlying layers that I think went along into that, but those are some of the things I noticed on both sides.
I don't know if black people were already there. I think black people at the most were indifferent and uninformed. You know, most black people just didn't care because they themselves were not gay. They don't see it as they hear both sides of the story about, the horrors of what's going to happen when you legalize gay marriage, keeping the sanctity of marriage. And I don't know that there's the machismo plays as much as a big influence into black culture as does religion. Vast majority of black people are very religious and spiritual people. And, of course, we know religion kind of says, no to the whole gay thing. At least
absolutely.
That's how most people interpret it.
We're all on this big bus going to hell. But I used to think that, all communities that were affected by discrimination would stick together. And unfortunately, I don't think that that's the case as much as I would like it to be, because I think even just as an individual, I think that I'm more interested in the things that affect me directly than the things that affect, like, my neighbors and my community. Although I am interested in what affects them, I think that we all kind of have an unhealthy, maybe unhealthy is not the right word. We have a bigger interest in what affects us than what affects the community at large.
I wouldn't agree with that at all.
You don't?
No, I don't think. I certainly don't think everybody's like that. You certainly may be. Shame on you, Xander, for being selfish. But I don't believe that most people are like that. I really, really don't.
So what do you think it is then, Fallon, if it's not that? Why then do sections of the community that are discriminated against, why don't they pull together? And for me, I just kind of meant that was elementally, because it's something that I've kind of really thought about. What do you think stops all of these communities that are affected by discrimination coming together?
I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I actually disagreed with Fallon. I do think that you're right, Xander. I do think that minorities vote in their own best interest. But I also agree with Fallon in that a lot of voters are purposely misinformed. Some of these measures we had, some of them, do you support one man, one woman? Yes, and you got it to be law. And then there's others, do you support a ban? Yes, and you got it to not be the law. So, they were very tricky with that part. But as far as voting in our own interest and why so many groups get separated, remember that whole scandal with NOM, purposely trying to divide the black and the gay community, because, as Fallon says, the black community is the social center, is the church, and there is a lot of homophobia in the church that's spoken, and where she's right, where that had an influence on their vote against gay marriage, like for instance, in Prop 8. But that I think, like I say, when the president was able to say, guys, this is going to be okay, then they were able to, even if they could have never said it before and felt it, they finally were able to say so and voted it. And
Absolutely.
I loved how the gay and black community says, I'll be damned. You are not going to separate us just so you can line your wallet, Nom. Suck it, as Kathy would say.
Absolutely.
And we really did. We came together. Ben Jealous is my hero of the year next to the president.
Who is your hero of the year, sorry?
Ben Jealous, the president of the NAACP.
Right.
He came out and said, we support the president on this. Also, it was a done deal. We had the black vote, and NOM had failed right then and there. So I was so thrilled.
And I think there's an element of kind of, they talk about financial trickle down. There's also an element of hate trickle down. But I think it also works with good stuff too. Like, for instance, the president saying he's for gay marriage kind of gets people talking about it, gets people thinking about it differently. Just as when some people who should remain nameless say it's wrong to be gay and you shouldn't be marrying people of the same sex because it's sinful, blah, 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 blah. I think there's always going to be this element of trickle down with opinion, and I'm glad that there are more informed elements of societies being put into positions of power that are not so biased by old school thinking and religiosity, because let's face it, America as a union is so mixed that surely the ruling class should be reflective of this.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I agree with virtually everything that you said. I would just clarify that there may not, I don't know about hate trickle down, but I definitely think there's this permeating stupid everywhere, and then there's this fear trickle down. So, like, I could get on my radio show with my 2 listeners, and I could say, you know what, the white people are out to get us, and I could come up with some compelling facts, and I could say, and I could pick a person, and I could say, look at Xander, he's white, and he's trying to take us out, and I could come up with some facts and manipulate people. And it's, oh, my God, if I have money behind my rhetoric, then I become really powerful. And all it takes is somebody to feel like they are threatened themselves. I'm threatening their welfare or their children or their livelihood. And then they're on board with whatever the hell I said.
Right. And I think you touched on an interesting point there with regards to money, about, when you've got money that you can throw behind campaigns and things like that. It really kind of makes a difference. But I was actually pleased to see that was different with this election because, Mitt could buy and sell, the White House 50 times over, but it didn't work this time. No matter how much money he put behind his campaign, I think that his policies were so transparent and so segregating and so aimed at just a small section of the community that everybody else kind of saw through that.
Yeah, and I think there is an element of truth as far as the trickle-down hate and trickle-down money. I think they're combined.
Me too.
We outspent the anti-gay marriage opponents so drastically this time because, church folks are like, I'm tired of spending my money to give it to NOM, to let them get on TV, to say they're going to fight gay marriage. As long as there's money in hating, and it's a profitable enterprise, it's like Fallon said, as long as you've got money behind it, you're powerful. But as soon as people stop giving you that money, you really lose your power, and you really lose your ability to make money off the hate. The more gay marriage progresses, the less anti-gay marriage opponents are going to be very well funded because people see them as a bad bet now. And I think it's kind of, I think they're mixed. That trickle-down hate, trickle-down economics, I think there's a lot of it. That's really, I think both are elements of what we see going on.
Oh, absolutely. Like RuPaul says, vote with your money, protest with your money.
I mean, I think, I really think that essentially that things are changing. But I think that sometimes in this country, it's interesting. I heard Ben Barr, I was on a radio show with him the other day, and he was saying how, unfortunately, what we have to do is try and execute change on a local level for it to become federal. Because, you have to bang the drum loud enough for people to hear it in Washington, and then they're like, oh, really? Is that the case? And I think that's a sad thing because in other countries, like, for instance, in England, they don't do it in their little towns. They go to the top. They protest to the top, and then the top kind of does something from there. But here it's kind of like, I don't want to rub the phrase again, but it trickles up. And to me, that seems to be an odd way to do it, to start at the root to get to the top of the tree. And I don't know, what does that say about us as a nation, really, if we can't just go to the top and say, hey, this is what we want?
You absolutely can go to the top and say that's what you want. Look at all the people who want to succeed. They go right to the top. I'm out. I signed this petition. I'm going to get other people to sign it, and then we're going to leave, allegedly. That's not going to happen, of course. But you have the right. You can go to the top. You can be heard at the top. I think what Ben was kind of, reflecting is that our current political system is not as effective as it ought to be. I personally feel that there's a fair amount of corruption in there, which prevents things from moving. I think the biggest difference between us and the UK is their political system is afraid of the population. The population votes. If they don't like what you did as a politician in the UK, they will vote you out. We don't really do that here. We're just like, oh, whatever, okay, whatever. And then we allow ourselves to succumb to the rhetoric of whatever their campaign bullshit is, and we vote however their campaign dollars tell us to vote. Typically.
Absolutely. And I actually find it hilarious that they wanted to impeach Bill Clinton for a minor indiscretion. I mean, you might not see it as a minor indiscretion, but then Bush got away with all the shit that he got away with, and it was like Clinton's indiscretion was like, holy Armageddon compared to the shit that Bush inflicted upon us.
Absolutely, but they're totally different environments. You have to look at Bill Clinton's campaign was golden. Like, what did he do that was wrong? I don't know. I mean, there's very little that people can pick on that. So what you have left is his indiscretion with his wife. George Bush came into office, and then there was a massive attack on our soil, and he rode that for his entire 4 years. And we, like sheep, were just like, you're so safe. They're gonna, if we, he actually said things like, if you don't do this, then you're against America. And of course, everyone was like, well, I certainly don't want to be against America.
No. And I remember being here. I remember kind of coming back here around that time, and I was in a bar, and I remember saying, I've never really liked Bush, because being a Democrat, I kind of, my views and ideologies are not in that direction, but I remember saying something negative about Bush, and somebody said to me, you're unpatriotic. And I remember thinking a few weeks ago, how come under Bush it was unpatriotic to criticize the president, but it's okay to do it to Obama and then some, but it's not unpatriotic?
Well, I think a lot of that had to do with when you're under attack like that, and especially as dramatically, nothing like that had happened, especially in our lifetime, not since Pearl Harbor. People it took a while to wear off, and the shock to wear off. And I think by the time Bush showed his colors through the rest of his presidency, I think people really had enough, to the point that even, he didn't even get invited to the Republican National Convention. This time or last time, they had Sarah Palin instead. So
wow.
I think there was a certain amount of comeuppance as far as that went. But I think the shock finally wore off. We felt a little more secure. We finally got that was one thing I always blamed Bush for. He had evidence knowing that people were going to hijack planes. And while he could not necessarily stop that, he could have at least made the FAA start putting locks on the cockpit doors. That would have stopped the whole thing right there. That was just utter irresponsibility. But I don't blame him. I'm not one of these 9/11 conspiracists. But I think the planes hit the building for sure. And I think that we had already rigged the building for demolition so that, one, it would be an act of mercy, and two, to prevent, had those buildings just toppled over, that would have been a completely different situation. But I do think that they probably pulled the trigger too soon. They probably intended to get people out, and it's like they say, some poor bastard along the chain just doesn't get the word, and so either they did it soon or whatever. But yeah, I really do though. I think that the shock had worn off of that. That was in 2001. We didn't elect Obama for another 7 years. And the crash right at the end, just before Obama was elected, people were like, that's it. We're doing something new.
Yeah, I think that it was a very painful time for gay people living in the United States under Bush. I remember RuPaul saying that she didn't really want my brain works in that way. RuPaul kind of didn't really want to do very much during that period of time because he said he didn't think it was a very nice environment to live in whilst the Bush administration were having its reign of misadministration.
Yeah, well, look at Madonna. She took off to London for the duration. It's like, she said, I'm out here.
Certainly.
I think it was sad. But I will say this, one redeeming factor out of the Bush administration, for Dick Cheney to come out and himself say, look, I've got a lesbian daughter. I do think same-sex couples should be allowed to marry in the states that want them to. Yes, he was putting it out there so that they'd get political capital out of it. But even his tepid support was a good sign. And then Laura Bush, right after George Bush resigned or retired, also came out for same-sex marriage, and I think began the discussion within the GOP about how can we get rid of this social issue, and now they're all but ready to jettison the whole thing. They're just like, this is costing us more than it's worth now. There's a point of diminishing returns, and I think they've hit it. I think the Supreme Court will rule by the time we have the next presidential election, and it will be off the table. Neither side will be able to use it as a way to influence the gay vote. So they are going to have to bring it if they want our vote, because it's going to be up for grabs.
I really think that this is going to be the second Barack Obama's second term of administration is going to be the hardest for him, because he's really got to kind of come up with the goods. I mean, personally, I think he's done a very good job, but he's going to have a very hard time convincing some people about the change that he wants to effect. I mean, I want to just backtrack a little, because what kind of concerns me, I always wonder what is behind this opposition, and some of the exquisite phraseology that I've heard about the opposition to gay marriage is that it tears at the fabric of American society. I mean, what the fuck is the fabric of American society? And if it's so brittle, why don't we replace it? I mean, just some of these reasons for being anti same-sex marriage are just like, they're just so off the wall that they're kind of laughable. I don't agree with sex marriage because it will mean that all the kids will be gay. I mean, what do you think about that, Fallon?
Well, I think this election really made it crystal clear where the Republican Party identified themselves as a heterosexual, white, religious male party. And that's who they were supporting. They wanted to go back to, and Mitt Romney spoke about it several times, want to go back and restore America to that 1950s, good old America, that everybody remembers. And the reality of it is that America was not good for most people. And the voters came out and said that. The exit polls showed that virtually white, heterosexual males were the only people who voted for Mitt Romney. Everybody else, by and large, was voting for Barack Obama, and that's why it was such a huge win.
Right.
The Republican Party is going to have to redefine what their barriers are, what their rules are, what are they going to stand for, and that goes for gay rights, which I feel like Barack Obama is pretty much he's laid down the groundwork to resolve that and take care of that in the next 4 years.
Absolutely.
And unless, Senate or the House of Representatives really, really, really wants to stand in his way on this very small issue, which I don't think that's going to happen. If the Republican Party wants to redefine who they are, they cannot stand in the way of the vast majority of what the American population wants. And so I think Barack Obama is going to see a really, really, he's going to get some ruffled feathers along the way.
Absolutely.
It's going to be fairly easy for him to get done what he wants to get done.
Fallon, I'm not really sure they actually want to change their thinking or ideology. And when they do, it's almost always like a flip-flop situation that they agree to kind of gain some support at that particular time, but then they go back to it. I mean, I kind of call to mind John McCain's wife saying she was pro-gay marriage because her daughter had a book coming out. And then as soon as people had bought her book, she was like back to supporting her husband and her husband's ideology. So I can't buy the flip-flop, because for me, change has to be visible, and change has to be accompanied by actions.
I agree, but I think there are very few people who are flip-flopping, and I think what you see as McCain's wife flip-flopping is really her supporting both members of her family, which, let's face it, you have to do. She has to stand by her husband, who was running for president, and she has to stand by her daughter.
But that's still flip-flopping hypocrisy, Fallon, whichever way you look at it.
No, I don't think so.
If you say one day you're pro-gay marriage, and that's order for your kid to sell their book, and then a few weeks later, you do all these photo calls with the No Hate campaign, and you use all that free publicity, and then you say you stand with your husband's opinion on gay marriage, which is to be anti-gay marriage. To me, that's hypocrisy. That's flip-flopping.
I don't recall her saying that. I remember her saying she stood by her husband, but not on any particular issue. But
she did. She said on the gay marriage issue. She definitely did.
Even if she said that, that is one person, and I don't think, and that's prior to this past election. I think this past election was an earmark in the Republican Party, and every big player in the Republican Party, Mark Rubio, Jindal, everybody has said, we have to redefine or this party is going to die. And the reason being is that the breakout of the population has shifted. They no longer have the majority of the population. The minority is the new majority. And so they have to do something to appeal to the minority, and they can't flip-flop on that. They're going to have to figure out what their ideals are and what their values are going forward.
I agree. And, whether you agree on a certain individual's behavior as being hypocrisy or not, one of the things that I've had to do with myself, because I can be very scathing of politicians, but one thing that I've really, assumption that I've come to is now that, as have a lot of people, that we really need to look at the things that we agree on now and use that as a point to work from. Because if we always look at the points that we disagree on politically, we're never going to get anywhere. And surely even Republicans that hate the president have to start to love America more in order to reform the way this country is run, because it's easy to point fingers and say what people have done wrong. If we're going to draw a line under these things, then okay, that's fine, let's do that. But I will not have anybody defended that has used the gay community to their own advantage. And I'm sorry, that's exactly what that family did. And like I said, I'm happy to move on from that. I'm happy to be forgiving, but it doesn't change the fact that it happened.
Okay, so let's move on from it, because I wanted to ask you about something that happened this week that is pretty close to the gay marriage issue, and that's the pregnant man and the support or lack thereof from Chaz Bono. Absolutely,
we discussed that quite at length on Twitter, and I don't know if you're listening, Thomas, but it'd be great if you could call in. Basically, Thomas Beatty, who has been dubbed the pregnant man, is basically at a point where he's trying to get divorced, but the state that he lives in is now not, although Thomas is now legally a man, Thomas has had several surgeries to become a man. His passport and all his documentation says that he's a man, but the state that he lives in is now questioning whether or not he's a man. And I don't know if you've been following it on Twitter, but there's been a lot of hoo-ha about who supported Thomas, who hasn't, who's enjoyed the support of the gay community and then has not supported Thomas. Have you been following this, Brian?
I've kind of hear about it in the I've really been focused more on the campaign, but I really honestly, guys, I don't have too much to say about it. But I just really for our transgender people, I know a lot of times they feel like the gay community is about the gay community and the transgender community is being left behind, and the gay community says, guys, come on, we're all in the same bus here. We will get there. Bear with us. Be patient. Let's not fight ourselves. Well, we'll just go off and start our own group. Good luck with getting the votes. Just stick with us. We're not leaving anybody behind. But in Genesis 2:22, and this is really going to throw some evangelicals if there. Do any evangelicals listen? But really throw them for a loop, because it's going to address cloning and transgenderism. It says, the part of his side which the Lord God had taken from the man, he built up and made him into a woman.
Right.
How does anybody not see that Adam was the first transgender? Human beings were created to be transgender. Yeah, we settle off in this area or that area, but this notion where we have, the notion that we would not have the whole range of gender, really sometimes I think is something that the transgender community has just not had a loud enough voice that
I
they've been able to amplify that message. So
I do see your point, Brian, but I think, and I'm sure Fallon will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that interpretation is a little bit out there.
You mean like it's heterodoxy. So at least there's that much. No, I'm kidding. And there probably is. Listen,
anybody that knows me will tell you that I'm pro-transgender. I'm pro-transgender. I even dated someone about 12 years ago that was transgender, so it's never been an issue for me. But that's the very first time I've heard the Bible, Adam and Eve, as used as a kind of backup for for transgender people. But carry on. Again, Fallon, feel free to jump in, because I the thing I love about you, Fallon, is that you're not afraid to challenge. Challenge away,
Okay, well, here's my problem with that. I'm an atheist. So using the Bible in any kind of argument, you've completely lost me. At that point, it's like debating how many gumdrop buttons did the gingerbread man have. I don't give a fuck. He wasn't real. You know what I mean? So I don't really have. If the Bible is a legitimate, document that you want to leverage, feel free. I obviously don't see it as such, and I can't engage in that kind of. It's a waste of time for me to debate the particular Bible.
And I see in the chat room too. I think people misunderstood my meaning. What I'm saying is that God made a woman out of a man, and so for people who say you were born a man, you cannot change that, I say that's wrong. I think people got the exact opposite interpretation.
I don't think people thought you weren't being supportive, Brian. I don't think that was what they thought. I think they just saw the analogy as a little bit out there.
Oh, well, yeah, it's not. It's obviously not something you hear every day. But what I'm saying is that it speaks to, you hear, and I'll tell you why I said it. You hear this thing about God's divinely created order. It's male and female and nothing else. And what I'm saying is, even according to Scripture itself, that this whole thing, yes, I'm using the Bible against evangelicals. It's not really that. Hopefully we're just opening their eyes. I'm not really trying to use it against anybody. But it just really, I think, illustrates that God's original design was transgender in Adam himself. He could have never made a woman out of Adam if he didn't have the capability. I am not saying that because God made Adam a man that he should have stayed a man. Not at all. God himself did not leave Adam just as a man. So, so when you do hear, sorry for anyone who misunderstood that.
This is like the craziest thing I've ever heard.
That's still kind of far out for me. You see, I think that, I often explain that, I have faith, I believe in God, but I still think the Bible is a book that you can take bits from and make it mean whatever you want it to mean. Marvin just asked in the chat room, how many munchkins does it take to screw in a light bulb? Well, I don't know, Marvin, but if you could tell us the answer in the chat room, I'd really like to know that. But I have to say, I feel the Bible is something that people can use to either defend themselves or to hit you with. And for me, personally, the Bible is about your interpretation and about what you add that to kind of in your own heart. But I know you have a book out, Brian, and I know that some people probably see some of your interpretations in support of the gay community as out there. But I think that's your prerogative.
Well, and like I say, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Here's my question. Why do you need the Bible to validate or invalidate anything? Why can't you just say, I have my own morals, I have my own brain that God gave me if you wish to believe it as such, and you can make your own decisions about that. You should be able to validate the morality or immorality of anything without having to back it up or twist the dialogue in the Bible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. No, mostly the purpose of the book and the purpose of what I just quoted about Adam is to, like Xander said, you can use it to beat people up or you can use it to defend yourself with. And where I'm not saying that the Bible is necessary to validate our existence, what I am hoping to illustrate is that evangelicals have not told us where these scriptures are and that they do validate it. It's kind of like a byproduct. The validation, I agree, we do not need the Bible to validate our existence. We're here, end of story. We don't. But
that brings me perfectly on to my next point about with regards to kind of like separation of church and state, because I think sometimes George Bush all the time talked about God, and his speeches talked about what God had told him, what God had revealed to him. It's like, for me, if you take yourself out of the equation and you take your beliefs out of the equation, that's like me saying, just like Fallon said, what did you say, the Munchkin Man or the Gingerbread Man? I can't remember which. That's like Fallon saying to me, the Gingerbread Man told her that she should buy a shop or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I would be like, the Gingerbread Man told you what? So, if as a country we are separating church and state. Sorry, I'm just laughing at Marvin's response in the chat room. If we do have a separation of church and state, then the same-sex marriage issue should not really be an issue at all, because if the majority of the objection is about religiosity, why are we even having the conversation? Either we're still using the document in order to assist us in making laws, or we're not.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it helps to put money in the offering plate, and that money gets sent to groups like NOM, and that money gets sent to groups like the GOP. So that's why this particular issue has gone through the religious channel. And here's the thing, too, that I will say. You're absolutely right as far as separation of church and state. I see some scriptures in the Bible that says the Apostle Paul himself ordained single-gender marriage. That's fantastic if you're a Christian, but it does not apply to every other religion in the world.
Right.
So to me, I've got a lot of atheist friends, and they're like, the Bible should not be used to dictate our laws, and that's absolutely right. But even further, I would say, even if the Bible says that same-sex marriage is okay, it's still not the basis for our constitutional laws. It doesn't matter if it opposes it or supports it. Our laws need to be independently based on the Constitution.
Absolutely. Because either, you see, we can't keep picking and choosing. Either we are a country that looks to the Constitution for guidance, or we don't. But I think that we have become a nation of people that pick and choose from it.
Oh yeah, a lot of people do. It's really sad, but it's absolutely true. But we did not need the Bible to know that murder was not a good thing in this country. We did not need the Bible to know that you should not go around raping women. And there's a lot of things that are not in the Bible that we are able to do because we did not base our beliefs on it, our Constitution on it, such as the planet Mars does not exist because it does not say so in the Bible. It could get really, really dangerous.
Well, if we were still using the Bible as a guide, we'd be sacrificing every firstborn, and there's so many kind of things that we would still be doing. But I think that it's bad to, like you said, with such a multi-faith country, be basing decisions, on what the Bible says. And, even our own moral guidelines, everybody's going to be different. So we shouldn't even be, what one person might think is moral and acceptable, another person might not. So it's a very delicate line to draw, really.
Yeah, if churches never performed weddings, that would be, one thing that would have prevented it from being part of the conversation. But one thing that I've always noticed and wondered, too, is, we get a lot of laws passed that have religious exemption clauses so that it doesn't apply to religious organizations. And I think one of those should have been in every one of the anti-gay constitutional bans that passed that said, but if your church does believe in same-sex marriage, you should be able to. It doesn't work that way, does it? No. They just want it. They just want it when it, it's about contraception or something. Yeah, just like you said, they can choose.
I always come back to the same point with churches, and that's if you want to have a say in how the country's run, then pay your taxes.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody's always saying, if the church wants to put their 2 cents worth, they should put 2 cents worth in. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the thing about religious institutions too. Since they are tax exempt, a lot of businesses can funnel money through there. To that's one thing about being rich. After that, all that's left to do in this country is to go for power, and so they use their money to, like I say, they put it in the church first. The church buys a business. That business turns a profit, but it's also tax deductible, and they use all that money then to influence the government because they don't want to pay taxes. That's what it really all comes down to. I would really hate for a few bad apples to spoil it for everybody, but I am this close to saying churches should not have a tax-exempt status anymore. This is crazy. It's just crazy.
So, Fallon, my bad, but we kind of got off topic a bit. We started to talk about Thomas and Thomas's situation. You did have a point to make about that, but bad moderator that I am, we got slightly
No. You should let the conversation go wherever it wants to go.
Absolutely, but I just thought you had a specific point to make that was relevant to Thomas's situation.
Oh, I don't remember. It had something to do with whatever you were saying about McCain and Chaz, whatever. It's whatever.
Right.
Anyway, but to kind of piggyback on what you guys are talking about with taxation of churches and stuff, I mean, it just goes to show you how our society has migrated, and our tax laws in particular has not. Churches were tax exempt because they were supposed to be serving the people. They weren't supposed to be raking in profits and becoming profitable entities. And, I mean, now you go to churches and they have more money than the people who attend the church.
The Catholic Church are multi-trillionaires. I don't even know what it goes to after trillion, zillion. I actually heard...
It's not just the Catholic Church,
Nobody
is exempt from raking in the bucks here.
It's not, but I'm gonna kind of offend all my Catholic listeners now. But I remember a few months ago, where in the United Kingdom they passed a law that protected gay people in the workplace to say that you could not, in the United Kingdom, refuse to employ someone because of their sexuality. And get this, I'm still kind of reeling over it. The Catholic Church in the United Kingdom went to the government and said they felt that they should be exempt from that because as far as they were concerned, homosexuality was a sin. So that should allow them to break the law. They should be allowed to refuse to employ homosexuals because of their religious beliefs. I mean, have you ever heard anything so ridiculous in all your life?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes they'll pick up on cases like that to generate some publicity and to generate some fear because, they know their time is short as far as how much longer they can keep doing this. But I say it like this. It's like the people, especially Rick Santorum, was, well, with all this gay marriage talk, now the Catholic Church can't run their adoption agent services. Nobody told them to get into the free market and operate an adoption agency service. And if they would let us use contraception, we wouldn't need all these adoption agency services. And so we're not going to give you a tax break for them. But the idea is we do give them a tax break. They still want to be able to discriminate, and it's you choose one or the other. And if you're going to be in the free market, you're going to have to abide by all the rules that everyone else who participates in the free market does. You have a religious belief that you do not want to hire gay people, but you do not have, if you're in the private market, the right to discriminate against gay people. You either hire them or you don't get into private business, one or the other. What is it? England's always a little different in that regard. In that particular case, is this a business that's in the private sector, or are they just the church? Is it just church employees?
Marvin just said in the chat room, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, it's really difficult reading the chat, listening, and not laughing while people are talking, but he says, Catholics want lots of intelligent children for the Nazi experiments.
It's true. Hey, where do you think the sex trafficking, all this child sex trafficking comes from? It comes, I think, I'll say it like this, I fear that they are children who the Catholic adoption agencies aren't able to get adopted off, and so they get sold off onto the black market instead. They're coming from somewhere. I can't imagine but that the Catholic Church's adoption agencies are a large broker in that industry.
Absolutely.
And so like I say.
So as we're kind of getting towards the end of our time, I want to kind of pose a question to both of you. Now, how do you see, first of all, how do you see, and I'm going to ask Fallon first. First of all, how do you see the progression of the institution of same-sex marriages going in this country? And secondly, as a gay person, how do you see your role and responsibility in furthering that?
I think it's going to be legalized at the federal level. I think that's a no-brainer. I think Obama's going to make that happen.
Right.
As how it affects me, I don't know. I'm single right now. What my role in it? I would personally like to offer a lot of heterosexual married women the right to be gay married to me when it's a legal right. Because I feel like they've been living in a world deprived, and I want to give them that right once we can. So
living in a world deprived of Fallon Stone.
Exactly. A marriage to me is a happy, blissful marriage.
So are you looking, Fallon, or not? Are you single and not looking, or are you single and looking?
I'm loosely looking. I'm like looking at the people that I want, and they're already married to men, so I'm just waiting.
Hey, I think you must be my gay lesbian twin because it's exactly the same for me. All the people that I'm looking at are married to women. So maybe we could get together and split a couple up, and you could have the girl and I the guy.
Hey, yeah, what could possibly go wrong there?
I know, right? Absolutely. So the same question to you, Brian. Do you remember what I said, or?
Yeah.
Cool.
My main purpose is just to help gay Christians, because there's a lot of us, believe it, understand that, even if they're struggling with this notion, is homosexuality a sin? Should I get gay married? Even though I know I want to get gay married. And I'm saying you do not have to choose between. Your faith tells you it's okay to get gay married. Get gay married if that's what you want to do. But don't let a preacher stop you just because of their misinterpretation of a few passages that actually apply to heterosexual men on the down low. They don't have anything to do with gay people. And there are scriptures that says you were born this way from Jesus himself. There are scriptures from the Apostle Paul that says get gay married if that's what you want to do.
Do you know I just had to stop myself from singing some Lady Gaga there, Brian?
What's that?
I had to stop myself then from singing some Lady Gaga, but fire away.
She was not the first one to say it, but it makes you wonder who inspired it, But yeah, that you were born this way, that you are able to get gay married, and that there's a role for us to play in the Christian life, in the spiritual life of the Christian church, if that's what you want to do. You do not have to, regardless of what anyone has said before, according to the Bible, you do not have to choose between your sexuality and your faith. And I think too many people do because they're just not aware that they don't have to.
Marvin wants to know if you want to join in a chorus of Kumbaya, Brian. So Fallon, while we've got a little bit of time at the end, do you want to tell us a little bit about your show that's coming up and how people can find you and tap into your awesomeness? Absolutely.
And that's probably the best way to word it. Tap into my awesomeness. So my show starts January 5th, 2013, provided we're all here after that Maya thing happens.
I'm providing Blog Talk Radio has sorted out its freaking technical issues, but, I'll get off my soapbox now.
Okay. Are you sure? You want to say one more thing about it?
No, I'm done.
So January 5th, it will come on every Saturday, 2:30 to 3:30 PST. Of course, that's 5:30, 6:30 Eastern Time. And it's just going to be, it's called The F Word Experience. We have a website, www.thefwordx.com. That's THEFWORDEX.com. Right now it's under construction, so go ahead and write that down. But from there, you'll be able to get all of our updates, who we're having on as guests. We'll have guests occasionally. We'll be talking about topics. We'll do some political discussions. I really wish I had my show going so I could talk about this Petraeus scandal because I love it. Oh, my God. and talk about Susan Rice, because I'm starting to really love her. I'm crushing on her pretty bad.
You're crushing on Susan Rice? That's amazing.
Oh, I'm loving her. Like when Barack Obama, who is a very sexy man, and I am not too lesbian to admit it, came out in his press conference.
Hey, get in line.
Huh?
Get in line.
Get in line. I know. There's a long list of Obama lovers out there for Barack.
There are.
But when he came out and said, you want to, don't pick on her. Don't come after me. You want to fuck with somebody? Come fuck with me. And I was like,
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I just want Barack to introduce me to his younger, hotter, gayer brother. And of course, I'm actually working on sorting out my links page, but there will be a link to a Fallon show on my link page in the near future. And I will be letting you know, we'll be plugging Fallon's show to when it's going to be coming on. And now if you live in Fallon's area and you think she's hot, you can actually tweet her. What's your Twitter? What's your Twitter thingy?
At Fallon Stone.
Fallon Stone. FALLONSTONE.
Yes.
So Brian, tell us a little bit about your book. Don't tell us too much because you really want people to buy the book and kind of be intrigued. But tell us what it is, what it's called, where they can get it, and in a nutshell, what it's about.
Yeah. Well, it's called The Bedkeeper, a biblical case for gay marriage. It's available on Amazon.com. If you go to my website, Brian Bowen Ministries, it's just BrianBowenMinistries.com, BrianBowenMinistries.com. The information, there's a link there that will take you to the book that you can purchase it. But it also, the purpose of the book was really to provide gay people who have been beat up to bloody hell with all of the anti-gay talk a way to say, you know what, Mom, Dad, here's what this scripture says, and this guy wrote this book, and he says this is what he thinks it says, and the church cannot prove it's wrong. And that applies to being born gay, same-sex marriage, adopting children, gay men who decide to actually marry women in order to have children. That's in there. But then also, what happens after gay marriage becomes the law of the land, and what does the church do? How does it go from there? And shows not only that we're born this way, but there's a really, really important reason that plays into the return of Christ. And so it kind of...
But do you cover gay divorce, Brian? That's what I want to know, because that's going to be more interesting than gay marriage.
I do not cover gay divorce, and I do not give gay marriage advice. Like a lot of things, the scriptures are supposed to be read in a three-dimensional way, not just a two-dimensional way. You can't just know what it says, but it needs to be applicable to something, and it needs to make logical sense. I even have a section in there for our atheist brothers and sisters as far as the creation account compared to evolution, and we find out God used evolution to create. He said, let the earth bring forth the grass, and the earth brought forth the grass. And
so, Brian, I can't let you go without asking because on Facebook we had some interest, and I think it was actually from Fallon's friend, that they wanted to know about why you were dressed as a king in the picture. So,
well, the one thing is one of the spiritual purposes that I found was that we have consistently throughout the Bible been messengers of the king, whether it was King Xerxes if it was King Xerxes getting a message sent to the eunuchs to Queen Vashti, or we were in charge of all of the hairstyles and makeup for Queen Esther. We've always been in the palace, and we've always been assistants to the royals. So really the wardrobe there was for a video series that I'm going to be working on YouTube that will actually kind of work for that part of the book when I go to help understand
Brilliant.
it. Yeah, so it's just costuming, but people can follow me on Twitter at The Bedkeeper, all one word, and really keep up with everything that I'm doing. Whether it's I often post sections from the book so that you can just read them for free. There's a blog that has actually got a lot more to it than would fit in the book.
I actually know for a fact, Brian, that Marvin and Fallon will be following you as soon as this show is over.
I think they already are, yeah. But, anybody that wants to keep up with what I'm doing, it's kind of a work in progress. But I just want to say, everybody, God loves you, and He made you this way for a reason. You may not know it, and you may not believe it, but it's okay. You don't have to. But knowing that, on that
note, Brian, let's draw the discussion to a close. I'd like to thank you both. Okay. I'd like to thank Fallon Stone and Brian Bowen for being my guest today. I don't know if we've confused the issue on gay marriage for you, or we've made it a bit clearer for you to understand, but either way, thank you guys very much, and we look forward to hearing a lot more from you.
Thank you, Xander. Nice to meet you, Fallon.
Xander. Yeah, nice to meet you, too. Good luck with your book. Thank you, Xander, for having me on as a guest. Excellent show. Wonderful job, and I love being a part of it, so thanks.
Absolutely. Look forward to working with you guys again.
Thanks. Great. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, well, that was show number 5. Apologies for the technical problems in the beginning. I really have to berate Blog Talk just once more. I'm going to speak to them. I'm not sure what the issue is with the software. Another one of the Cult of Jake had issues with it yesterday, and I know that others have been having problems with it. Just to go over very quickly a few of the things that I was talking about at the beginning when you couldn't hear me. Some would say that was the best part of the show, but I would disagree. If you can find it in your heart to help my fellow New Yorkers who've been affected by Hurricane Sandy, by texting 90999, that's 90999, which will donate $10 to the American Cross Disaster Relief Fund. I can't emphasize how much I support the American Red Cross above other organizations that are collecting, like the Salvation Army. The thing is that the Salvation Army have an agenda. They have an anti-gay agenda, so don't give your money to them. Give the money to the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund, because they do have an agenda, but their agenda is to help individuals. So I would be very grateful if you could make a donation to them. Now, I know the show's probably already in progress, but check out Brandy and Jenny right after the show on Timeout Seat. Check out the Jake Pentland Show on Saturdays, 1 p.m. PST, 4 p.m. EST. If you call in, tell him that Xander sent you. Our show next week will be with the fabulous Jiffy Wild from Chelsea lately. Chelsea will not be calling in, I don't think, but we never, ever know. Big shout out to the people in the Cult of Jake. Thank you guys for your love and your support. You're all a pain in the ass, but I do love you. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to the 4,000-plus listeners that I've had prior to the show this month. You honor me. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. You really have given me something to think about. So thank you very much for joining me today. Hopefully we'll get the technical problems sorted out by next week. I love you all. Bye.
Love, it has been good to me this time around. Things were bound to change when it was